Okay, so here we have kind of our shape roughed out, which looks roughly a little bit like the sketchbook picture I made. Forgot to show you that before, but I had already sort of an idea in mind of what part I was going to focus on, his head and shoulders, how I wanted his face to look. And I like this idea of his head being slightly tilted, like he's looking at the painting of a student, trying to figure out a nice way of telling you that you're going down the wrong path. So I've got this, it's still a little full at the bottom here. Before I work on the details on his head, I'm going to hollow this out a little bit because I am going to be firing this to test the colors on it. So I want to make sure that's not going to explode in the kiln. So you can just take a knife or one of your big trim tools and just kind of scoop this out the way you'd carve a pumpkin. Not doing anything too fancy in there because no one's going to see, but you just want to make sure that we're not going to have air bubbles in there. That up through his neck a little bit. Make sure we got air circulating inside. I can scoop out a little more when it's a little drier. We're not flexing the shape so much, but just wanted to get the bulk out of there. Okay. So I'm going to start working on the proportions of his face and his head here. So we've got generally the basic shape of his skull here, but I'm going to start give him a little more of a chin. Okay. Bring that down. And the front of the face is basically like an oval. So if you look here, start at the top of the head, a little wider around here. It's kind of like wearing a mask. This is kind of the main area we'll be working on for the proportions of our face. Okay. So bottom of the chin, top of the hairline there. So from there, I'm going to just roughly put a line at the halfway mark. If we were to have an imaginary line going across our face at the halfway point, this would cut through right lengthwise through the center of our eyes. And the other halfway mark vertically cuts right between the eyes, through the middle of the nose, middle of the mouth, down the middle of the chin there. Okay. So we'll be able to erase the parts of the line that we won't need later, so don't worry about that. We're just putting some marking lines on there. So now I'm going to make a line that's halfway between this eye line and the bottom of the chin. And that's going to be for the bottom of his nose. And another line halfway between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin. And that is roughly the line the lips will go on. Okay. So from here we go up from the corner of the mouth, make a mark, and that is where the center of your eyes are. Okay, you can already see just with a few lines it's already starting to have a little life to it. Okay, and with ears, usually just kind of at an angle between that line of the nose, the line of the eyes, and they don't go as far forward as far back as people seem to think. They're just kind of usually right about there. He had rather large ears. I'll probably need to look at a picture to kind of play with that and see exactly where I want them to go, where I want them to hang. But this will give me a good idea where they go, so when I put his hairline on there, it'll relate to his ears. Okay. Okay, so we still got kind of a tall head here, so I'm going to polish that down just a bit. Okay. Bring back some clay for the back of his skull. It's another of thing that people usually do when they create a portrait for the first time is they don't take into account, and I will have a picture of a skull for you guys to reference off of, but our skull doesn't just rise up and rise down and then go down right to our spinal cord. If our spinal cord was right here, we have some brain tissue that our skull makes room for out in the back there. So I'm going to put a little more clay on the back of his skull so he doesn't look like a Pez dispenser. Okay. Give a little more volume. Okay. This clay is beautiful. It's very responsive and plastic, but it can also be kind of resist you a little bit because it doesn't have much tooth to it. Okay. So you're not getting a lot of friction under your fingers. It's just kind of moving and getting polished under my fingers. So just doing this a little bit at a time. Okay. Taper that down a little bit. Okay. Bring in his neck just a little more. Okay. Okay. So as I'm sculpting the neck here, kind of pushing under the skull, just kind of leave room for the jaw there. So I'm not pushing his neck all the way up into his face. Okay. Get kind of a narrow jaw and chin, so I don't need to make him very square jawed. Okay, kind of exaggerating the length of his neck a little bit just to go along with the stylized portrait style he often had. Okay, if I was going to make the neck a little more lifelike, I'd probably end it a little more here, and I might still add more clay for the shoulders there. I'm not sure if I like this yet. It's getting a little long. Okay. Okay. Get my turntable here. I can open up a book, have some space to work. I'm going to look at a portrait of him from his book while we're working here. I think you should still be able to see this. Let me check. Tilt that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's look for a picture. Okay, here's a good one from the side. Got a good portrait of the curve of his nose, where his eyes are placed, where his lips are. I remember him having a goatee, but perhaps he did not. I'll look at other pictures and see if there was a beard or if I'm imagining it. But that's why it's often good to work from a photograph. A lot of times our minds will simply fill in details that don't really exist and forget other details that are important. Okay. Making him a nose, it's kind of a teardrop shape. Okay. pieces of clay, so I'm not going to worry too much about slipping these on. I know that goes against everything I've ever told you, but sometimes you can get away with it. Okay, so for a little thing like this with the clay being so fresh, I'm going to bond these on pretty well by modeling. Okay, so let's put his nose on there. So the bridge of his nose ends right at that line in between his eyes there. Okay, take my fettling knife, I'm going to come down, just attach that on there. Okay, I'm not worried about details yet. I'm just trying to rough in his features. So kind of a bulb at the tip of his nose there. Rather pronounced slope on his long nose. I'm going to come in, press that down, carve in an angle there. Pretty nice. Okay. So from here, just take some more excess clay off there later. Okay, I'm going to put in his eye sockets. Okay. So his eyes were fairly deep. I'm going to push in a little bit. Also, as we age, things like our eye sockets tend to get more pronounced. So the older someone is, the deeper you're going to go with these carvings. If you're doing a young person and you go too deep with carving out things like the eye sockets, you can make that person look very old. So it'll catch a lot of shadows. And it'll look like the person extremely cavernous features. Kind of with an older person, that's a little more to be desired. Okay. Bring his brow up a little bit. He almost never brought his brows down in anger or anything, so let's look a little. Bring that line up a little bit, give a little more of a searching expression. Very sanguine and kind man. Okay. Okay. Put a line back in there for his eyes so we know where those are going to go. There we go. His mouth. Cut a line in there. Just tilting this up slightly to give him an upper lip. We'll go into that more on the larger version of this, but you don't need to add a lot of clay for lips. Usually they can just be created by carving them out from the background of the face. Okay. So we start to get a good profile of the lips there. Okay, had a pretty deep undercut under his bottom lip there. I'm going to bring that clay down, use it to round out the bottom of his chin. Work like so. Okay. bring his head forward a little bit. Okay, there we go. Give him kind of a expression like he's looking at your painting. Bring it up just a little bit. Doesn't look like he's falling over. Okay. Add a collar on there. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Too big. Okay. There we go. Starting to look like the... Okay. Do another one. The other side. Forward a little. There we go. I will get some slip of this clay and attach these pieces on. For now, I just kind of want to place them and see what I want. Okay, there we go. Perhaps there's a button there. Okay. A little more. Okay, there we go. Starting to look good. Okay. Draw a line down here. A little more of the button placket. A few more. Then for his lab coat, I think I'm just going to draw that on. I think he wore a lab coat. I'll have to ask my other friends if they remember, but it seemed to me that he did. Okay. So we want to deal with the back just a little bit, because it's going to be visible since this is a piece that's in the round. It's not a bas relief. A little bit of that collar extending around the back there, and I will slip that on. Okay, so there we have a start on our maquette, and as it's after I slip those pieces on there, I'm going to let it get a little more leather hard, and then I'll be able to carve a few more details in there.